If you aren't already aware, Splatoon 3's Side Order is the highly anticipated second wave of the Splatoon 3 DLC that, at the time of recording this, has only been out for just around 2 weeks, and I, along with a lot of other people, are already really enjoying it. Having first been teased in February of 2023, waiting over a full year, we were finally able to play this eerie-looking roguelite story. Set in a color-drained Inkopolis square, so many of us were really excited to get our hands on this and unpack all the lore. Now that we actually have it, and a lot of us completed it by now, I think the question most of us have is, was all that waiting really worth it? And with that, is Side Order actually better than Octo Expansion? To answer these questions, I think there's 3 main points we should go off of here. Gameplay, the parts that aren't gameplay, like story, pacing, and characters, and then finally, the longevity of this DLC. So, I'm just gonna go right out and say it. The biggest caveat with this campaign for me personally is just how quickly you get through it. Every level usually only takes a minute or 2 in order to clear it, excluding the boss fights. It only took me around an hour and a half to complete the initial spire, plus me totally not dying on the final boss fight. Yeah, that wasn't great. But regardless, when I was nearing the end, I was thinking, this is it? After completing the spire on my 4th run, with Umbrella of all weapons, I realized there was a bit more to it, but still, comparatively to Octo Expansion, or even any of the other main story modes, while the gameplay itself was actually incredible, and I'll touch on that in a minute, there was still significantly less of it. Now, before you get mad at me because they advertised this story to be replayed over and over again, so technically there's much more gameplay to it, you could argue the same exact point for the campaign of Splatoon 2. You're able to receive the hero weapon for completing all the stages with that particular weapon, which is the same principle with the palettes in Side Order. While there might not have been much of it, when talking about the gameplay itself, wow. I genuinely think playing this was the most fun I've ever had in a Splatoon game. Granted, any X-Rank gameplay makes me want to throw my controller within like 3 matches, so anything seems better than that, I guess. I was really excited to see something other than platformer levels, and with that, ones that actually test your skill. Personally, I struggled the most on the Escort the Tower stages, and unlike most people, I actually found the zone stages to be really easy. Having played multiple of them on the rigorous plus danger difficulty, I only lost a life to them like once. On top of this, considering the fact that there's only 4 main modes, gives Nintendo a lot of freedom if they decide to update this with a new wave of content. However, let's face it, the likelihood of this actually happening is pretty slim. If they did update it, I think some great additions would be some more bosses and modes, and endless mode in which you basically just keep playing levels that get progressively harder until you die, whether that be in the game or in real life, which I understand would kind of take away from its roguelike feel, but I still think it'd be pretty fun. Or they could finally just include Agent 4 in something for once. I mean, she's been neglected for like 7 years at this point. Overall, I thought the gameplay was actually really fun, and the new enemies were cool, however, I did just wish there was a bit more to the actual playthrough. Alright, what about the parts that aren't gameplay? I think the first thing we should look at is the whole overarching story, which, I'll be honest, there wasn't much. Again, felt like a really short DLC. Just a quick note, this does contain spoilers for the ending after the final boss, so if you don't want it spoiled, you can go ahead and skip to this timestamp right here. Anyways, for a quick recap, Side Order starts out with a cutscene of Agent 8 laying on the floor, and we begin our character creation. We're visited by Pearlbot, and somewhat introduced to the world that we find ourselves in. Roaming about the main area called the Order Sector, Pearl introduces us to some basic controls and the elevator. This is where we meet the side character Oct, who tells us how to get out of this colorless world. We fight through more levels and reach our first boss fight, that being Marina, who, you guessed it, is being mind-controlled by some outside force. Man, fighting one of our friends who's being mind-controlled by another evil entity? What an original plot twist that I've never seen before. And obviously, because we're awesome, we save Marina and find out that there's an actual taller spire where we need to defeat the main enemy, Order itself. After fighting through 30 floors, we get the opportunity to fight Order, which, after defeating him, we find out that conveniently, right at the time we fired our last shot, he was able to execute his program to make the entire world orderly. Fortunate for us, Agent 8's vibe is strong enough to break the program, and we enter one last phase of the boss fight. However, this time, for each portal we destroy, we get a bunch of a certain color chip type up until we've maxed out and prepared the color whale. This is where everyone else presses the R stick to fire it off and finish the boss, but here's real footage of me being completely oblivious and continuing to fire at him with my weapon. After we deal the final blow, Order's defeated and turns into a smaller, less harmful version of himself. And with that, the credits roll and we return to restored Inkopolis. First off, I want to mention how much I absolutely loved every single one of these cutscenes included here. All of the animation was super fluid from gameplay to cutscene, and I think provided some needed depth to the characters, each showing off their unique personality. So, about the overall pacing, I don't know, I kind of have mixed feelings on it. On one hand, I enjoyed the fact that actually playing the game started really quickly, but on the other hand, the introduction of the story, and the ending for that matter, felt a bit rushed. Almost like there wasn't much of a story at all. It felt very, alright, we're here, go shoot those things, and then, yay, you did it, everyone's back to normal. However, I'm not like 100% sure about all that, and it really could just be me on that one. One thing I do know everyone liked was the music, especially that song that plays when you fail a run. Why did they have to make the best song play when you lose? Personally, I really loved all the new remixes of the Off the Hook songs used in Splatoon 2. And one final bit of this section, the characters. I think the dynamic between Pearl's chaotic traits and Marina's reservedness sort of lends itself to the situation we find ourselves in the beginning of the story. I'm not sure that I really have much to say about Oct. I mean, she was kind of just there, I don't know. So, with all that being said, I think we should consider one last thing. How will this DLC perform with the audience over a long period of time? Maybe a few weeks, a few months, or even a few years? Now, obviously, I can't predict the future, but again, looking back at Octo Expansion, which is now 6 years old at this point, has so many fans actively going back to Splatoon 2 just to play it. Honestly, I think the same thing is probably true with Side Order as well. I mean, despite the lack of content, there are still so many possibilities for both content creators and the players themselves to just be creative and continue making new challenges for themselves. With any new game, there's always that new potential for speedrunners, which have somehow already beat the game in under 4 minutes. Yeah, I don't even understand how that's possible. If anyone in the comments could explain this to me, that would be awesome. I really can see a lot of people coming back to play this campaign time to time, even well after the updates for Splatoon 3 have ended. And finally, is this DLC actually better than Octo Expansion? In my opinion, I really don't think it is. Nintendo just really nailed everything in Octo Expansion, so it's kind of hard for something to live up to those expectations. Regardless of if this is better or not though, I still had a great time playing Side Order, and if you don't have it yet, I would definitely check it out. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and real quick, I just want to make clear that this whole video is simply my opinion on the DLC. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.